Welcome back to the Boardman Black and Gold podcast with Zane and David. Man, what a stinker of a football game we just witnessed a couple of days ago. I mean, if there was any sentence that I had to describe this game, it was an utter waste of time. This game was ridiculous. Both David and I had work in the morning, and we said, well, what the heck? What's the reason for us to stay up and to stay awake for this game? It was just a complete and utter waste of time.
Absolutely. And, I would say for the first half and even some of the third quarter, I was feeling okay. Like, I was still, hopeful. I was still like, okay, you just got to do something. Just do one thing, and it's a game. And we just never did. And it was just, it was bad. It was so bad. Do not like that I keep bringing up this season because this season was so tumultuous. I brought this season up last week, but it's like our offense has reverted to 2019 with Doug Hodges and Mason Rudolph. And our defense is, what it's supposed to be these past two games. And our offense is like, oh, blah, blah, I'm going to barely, they did nothing this game. They did a little bit last week or 2 weeks ago. Oh yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible. There was nothing offensively besides Jalen Warren's insane hurdle that was good.
I agree. I think Jalen Warren had a great game, and that's it. There's nothing else that you can point to on the offense that was good. I think that let me just get your opinion on this right off the bat, because you've been down on Aaron Rodgers the last 2 weeks specifically, and you've been very vocal about that in our little group chats. You started to kind of get into that on the air this last week in last week's episode, but break down for me what it is about Aaron Rodgers right now that is so insufficient for this offense, because it seems like it was just a snap, and then something went wrong, and he just doesn't have the it factor anymore.
No, and I think that you're kind of starting to wonder, you watched him last year against New York. He put up fine stats. They were a horrible team. And you're like, okay, is he, gone? Is he, past his prime? And you say, well, no, it's the New York Jets. Come on, it's the New York Jets. So he comes here, week one. I'm utterly impressed. He has an amazing game. And then he has fine games, doesn't high interceptions, but, everything else, he's doing fine. And then, yeah, these past 2 weeks, the one thing I would say about Aaron Rodgers, watching his highlights, I loved to watch his highlights when he was at Green Bay, is he could put the ball exactly where he wanted to all the time. That is not the Aaron Rodgers that we've seen this year. He, and granted, Colts defense is fine, but the Chargers has an amazing defense. But there were throws that were just I'm talking first or second drive where we ended up settling for a field goal is Jonnu Smith wide open. And Jonnu Smith might have scored. There was nobody around him, and he just sailed it right over his head. And then you see the first interception. There was a tight window, and he just missed it. And I know the coverage was really good on that play. But I think that, and then, oh gosh, it was he's supposed to be, one of the smartest guys on the field, always. Always making adjustments, always ready. And that's not what we've seen, specifically the past few weeks. But, this defense was just ready for him. And, the play of him stumbling back into the end zone against Khalil Mack and then almost fumbling the ball for a touchdown, that was just a little embarrassing. I think that, I'm not impressed with him at all. And I want to also know your thought. I'm a little shocked at how Mike Tomlin responded. I don't know if you've heard. Yeah, if I was Aaron Rodgers, I'd be worried for my seat, on the plane. Oh my goodness. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I heard the clip this morning. I hadn't listened to the press conference after the game. I think the question was, it was just in the regards of do you know the exact verbiage that they used? Because I just heard it in passing this morning, but it was essentially a reporter asking Tomlin after the game, what was the deal with Rodgers in this game? Why wasn't he doing this type of stuff? And Tomlin was just like, you tell me. And then and then he's like, no more questions. And then he was done for it. So, that in itself is very telling about kind of, at least, what Tomlin thinks of what's going on. It's not just us. If the coaching staff is seeing this as well, it is most definitely not just us fans that are seeing this too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that it is crazy where we've come. We were 4-1, and there was talks of the Steel, like we wanted him for another year. And now you've got your head coach like looking so ticked off that he can't even talk about him. So I think that that has cause for concern for sure. I think concern for Aaron Rodgers specifically because um, I mean, I'm sure he's thinking, like, veteran quarterbacks do, that, like, his job's secure no matter what. Like, who's behind him? Mason Rudolph? Like, come on. Like, he's going to go out there and do what he does. And if it ain't the best, then too bad. Like, he's our quarterback. And I don't know. After the comments that Mike Tomlin said, I think Mike Tomlin, if Aaron Rodgers was thinking that, was like, think again because I can do whatever the heck I want. And yeah, I think yeah, I hope that, I mean, it looks like he already has a fire. Actually, this is like I don't really remember noticing him after third downs or after like incompletions or thing like that. Him like yelling or getting angry. Like he looked annoyed. He would say some things, but it wasn't like past games where he's yelling in someone's face or yelling at the ref. Like he just almost had this like blank stare all the time. Like every time they cut to him. So I don't know if there was just something up in this game, but I mean, he in all facets was poor in the game.
Yeah, I mean, 6 for 31 for 161 yards, 2 interceptions, and a garbage time touchdown. Like, that's not going to do it.
No.
And I wonder too, like, so we both agree that Jalen Warren had a pretty darn good game. He rattled off a couple of nice runs of at least 10 yards, including the one where he hurdled the guy, which was awesome. That was the highlight of the game. There wasn't really anything else that you could point to in this game that was very noteworthy. Um, but do you think even with that, I mean, I was watching the condensed game again just before we started this, and it seemed like whenever Warren was running well, he would get a first down, and then we would pass on first down immediately afterwards, and it just didn't go the way that we wanted it to. And then we're sitting behind the sticks, and and then we get into third and long, and we did nothing on third down in this game. We were 2 for 11 on third down. So like that's kind of the thing is what is Aaron Rodgers doing to this offense? Is he kind of making the Steelers throw the ball more? I mean, like I said, he threw 31 times in this game. Jalen Warren had a great game on the ground, but he only had 14 carries. So is Aaron Rodgers kind of forcing the Steelers' hand to where they're throwing the ball more than they actually want to? Because before the season, we both said, okay, an Aaron Rodgers offense is not going to be running the ball as much as the Steelers' offense has in years past. So we figured there was going to have to be some type of merging between those two ideas. It doesn't seem like there's been a merging. It's just let's let Rodgers throw 30 times a game, and then whenever it makes sense to run, we'll run with Jalen Warren. Does that are you kind of processing that the way that I am, or what?
I hadn't yet or made that connection, but I think that's a great connection. And yeah, it goes. The question is like Rogers having a huge hand, which he likely is, in the play calling. And then, we've seen this in a lot of our games is that we're running really well and then we go away from it in the second half. It's almost like we didn't even go to it. Like it was just like, okay, fine. Like I'll call a run play right here. And I feel like it's an interesting point to think about last year with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Like Brees Hall, I feel like felt like almost invisible. Like I don't really remember him doing much of anything last year. And I mean, he's a great player, and he's having a decent year for the 2-7 Jets. So I think it just goes to question, yeah, like Aaron Rodgers trying to do what he did when he was, I don't know, 30, and it's like it's not going to work now. Like I just don't think he's got it in him to throw 30 times a game successfully, especially with our team with only having basically one wide receiver. Um, so yeah, I think that's a great connection you made, and I hope that I can't believe I'm saying this, but I hope that somehow Tomlin is like, we're done with the Aaron Rodgers offense, like run the football, and like we'll let you do what you want to do on certain plays, but we're gonna stick to our system, which is run the ball. Which who knows? If we run the ball more this game, giving our defense more rest, it could have turned out maybe differently.
Well, I mean, again, they lost the time of possession battle, and they lost it by a lot too. We never had the ball in general because we went 3 and out for pretty much the entirety of the first half. And then even when we did have the ball for some extended drives, it was just throwing the football. And the only time we got in the red zone, I believe it went, I forget, but I know for sure it was throw, throw, throw on second, third, and fourth down. So again, this really good offensive performance in the red zone, that was the time that they needed a touchdown. At that point, I believe they were either down 12 or 15-3. You get a touchdown there in the red zone, which you would expect to. You put yourself in a chance to be down just one score and perhaps, get yourself back into the game. Instead, on fourth down, they throw to DK. They throw a jump ball to DK in double coverage when he's blanketed. There is nowhere to go there. And I think the Mike Tirico even said it's like, yeah, that was one of those plays where Rodgers just had his guy and was going to throw to him no matter what. And, rightfully so. If you're the defense of the Chargers and you're saying, hey, it's fourth down and 6-ish, they're in striking distance of the end zone, DK Metcalf's over there, they're not going anywhere else. They're certainly not going to run the ball, not like what they've done. So why don't we just double cover DK? The safety came over and gave the corner some help, and there was nothing there. You can't expect DK to make a catch there. I think it might have hit his arm or something like that, but that's a 1% catch essentially. You can't expect that from either of those guys. And again, that's just kind of those specific plays. They hadn't happened a lot this season, but I feel like they're happening more and more now, that they're just trying to force things that just simply aren't there, and they're getting behind the eight ball because of it.
Yeah, and it stinks that this has been our offense since, I don't know, 2020, 2021. It's been like the defense is like, okay, well, this is the formation they're in, or this is what they've done before. I think it's pretty obvious what we should do here. Like what was it? Was it last year or 2 years ago? Where a Colts player or somebody was like on defense was like, it's the same plays. They're running the same plays. Like, we're back to that. That, like, this is where we are. And, I think that we're just, I don't know. Are we just, we're stuck here? Like, we're stuck in this offensive limbo, that it seemed, I guess, only Ben could get us out of. And so I just don't really know where you go from here offensively. Like, you've tried it all. You've tried a rookie quarterback you drafted. You've tried crazy free agency. You've tried the old vet trying to go out with one last bang. I don't really know what else you do, except sweep house. But yeah, and another point to this whole game that this is the most discouraging part for me is that the Pittsburgh Steelers live for prime time. We live for prime time. We get at least 3 prime times like games like a year, no matter what. And we win them. We win, but we basically win every single home one, and we do pretty good on the road ones. And we're 0-3. We're 0-3. How embarrassing! From this team. This makes me think of last year, right? Like 10-3, and feeling really good. Tank 4-1, feeling really good. We're 1-3 since then. I just, it's just a rerun over and over and over again, and. I give Tomlin credit for having a backbone against Aaron Rodgers, but I still think that just he is the issue, and we're not going to get any better than 9-8, 10-7 with him at the helm.
Okay, I have a question for you, and it has nothing to do with the offense. It actually has to do with the defense. What were your perceptions of the defense in this game? Because you could go a lot of different ways with it, I feel like.
So I'm actually, yeah, I definitely wanted to talk about them because I honestly have no complaints. I love them. We got pressure, which we were supposed to do because their O-line was beat up. He was constantly under duress. Watt almost got there a lot of times. Highsmith got there. Herbig got there. Hayward was, getting a lot of passes bad out of the line, which is like his thing. So our D-line was going crazy. Peyton Wilson made a lot of good plays. I think Patrick Queen had a fine game. I didn't see any splash plays from him. But one thing I was super encouraged about was our secondary. I think our secondary looks the best it's been for a while, and I think that part of that could be a changed scheme. If you look towards the end of the game when the Chargers really started to pull away, the catches and throws that were made were like, okay, there's nothing you can do there. I'm thinking specifically of like a 50-yard catch that Ladd McConkey had, where it's just like, I don't know how that ball got there. It was great coverage. And so I'm really like impressed with this defense back-to-back weeks. It was sad to see Darius Slay get hurt, but like you said in our group chat, James Pierre was on fire. So I honestly didn't really have any complaints with this defense. I don't know what your thoughts were.
I mean, I'm right there with you. However, the only complaints that I have, and again, this kind of goes back to a reoccurring theme that we've got going on in these episodes, is they missed a couple interceptions that really did change, I think, the outcourse of the game, as well as the outcourse of what was going on immediately around them. Joey Porter Jr. had one in his hands and just completely dropped it. And that was at midfield, which right after that, the Chargers punted. I think it was on a third down play. So immediately after, the Chargers punted, we're inside our own 10-yard line, and then that's when the safety happened. And that's when you start to get that feeling, oh, shoot, this isn't good. So that's a 2-point swing right there. We get the stop on defense right after the safety, after they get the ball back. That's fine. A little bit later, in plus territory for the Chargers, Duggar missed an interception. He was diving for it, but he got his hand on it. It was there for the taking. The Chargers ended up kicking a field goal after that to make it 5-3. So, it's not a ton right there, but that's 5 points that are pretty meaningful points in the early portions of the game. And then you think again, right after that, at the end of the first half, Rodgers throws that interception, up over the top when he was trying to get to DK. Again, there really was nowhere to throw that football anywhere on the field. And if you're going to throw it anywhere, you're probably going to try to throw it to DK. But again, the underneath was completely covered. He would have had to kind of loft it in there. I mean, he threw a line drive, but there was nothing there at all. And that resulted in a touchdown right before the half for the Chargers. So if you figure all 12 points in the first half were fairly preventable if our defensive backs can make a catch and, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't make that throw. And in that, say that JPJ potential interception actually does get picked off, they're right at the 50-yard line. And who knows? They hadn't done anything with short fields pretty much entirely in the entire game, but you never know. Maybe that's the kind of spark that you need, because we've seen, again, you talk about momentum. Momentum is important for this team. If you get that interception, even if it is like, you just threw it right to the defense, Justin Herbert. If you get that interception, you get that feeling. It's like, okay, we're who we want to be right now. When the Chargers got their safety, it seemed like that was the moment for their defense that it's like, okay, this is where we want to be. And then from there, they didn't give up any points the rest of the game. We scored 3 points, and it was on our second drive on a short field on a 59-yard field goal by Chris Boswell. So again, that's kind of like, the defense is not at fault in this game at all, by any means. Don't get that twisted. But there were a couple of plays early on, especially, that really could have changed, I think, the course of this game.
Absolutely. I think that Joey Porter Jr. drop was just so unfortunate, and it would have been nice to see what we could do. It was crazy how our first 2 drives we had amazing field position because they kicked the ball out of bounds on the opening kickoffs. We had it at the 40. And then there was a horrible punt. So we had the ball, I think, like around the 40 or maybe even the 50. So it's just unfortunate that we weren't able to capitalize. But yeah, I can remember the Joey Porter and the Kyle Duggar interception, which I'll say the Joey Porter one, it's like, come on. But the Kyle Duggar one, that one would have been tough. But still, like you said, getting your hand on it, you just wish you could come away with that. But yeah, and like even like Hayward, like one of the Hayward's passes defended, like he like looked at his hands after, like I just should have had that one. And it's like, like if we could have just had one of those, like what happens? Like the Chargers for sure got like 10 points off of turnovers. And it's like, well, what happens if we get a couple turnovers, right? Do we get 10 points out of that? Just like that, it's another game again. So, and I think it just goes to show what we've been saying and how Mike Tomlin schemes his team is that his team succeeds when there's turnovers. And when there's not turnovers, they can't get it done.
Right. And it has nothing necessarily to do with the defense, but that momentum is so important. And, if you're the offense, say you go 3 and out, man, what are we doing, guys? And then Aaron Rodgers, you see that interception from Joey Porter Jr. and like, all right, let's go. We're at the 50. Let's punch this one in. Let's get some points off of this. The Steelers had the best, I believe, points off of turnovers coming into this game. And I would assume that's not any different because, they didn't have any turnovers this game. So that number can't go down necessarily. But that's the thing. They've been opportunistic when it comes to their turnovers this season. And when they don't get them, there's no chance to be opportunistic because the opportunity doesn't arise. Then you have to go pound for pound against these good defenses. And we saw that, I think we both agree that the Chargers defense is pretty darn good. I think they run a pretty great operation over there. So if you're not going to get turnovers like the other defense, especially, then you just don't have the firing power to keep up with a team like this. And personally, I think the Chargers are a Super Bowl contender. I know that their offensive line is really battered up right now, but we saw that Justin Herbert was getting the ball out quicker than he had in his entire career in this game. And sure, they weren't super explosive, but they were effective. They were efficient. They got down the field. They opened up the run. Kamani Vidal was able to get some big runs early on in the second half, and then that opened things up for Vlad McConkey down the field later on. And that's how they got to their 25 points. So, again, you can't blame the defense in this game at all. But at the same time, there are a couple things where it's like, yes, we need those turnovers. This team is over-reliant on them, and that's just how it's going to boil down to. If they don't get turnovers, they're not going to win games against good teams.
Yeah, I agree with the Chargers, like in their defense, and I'd pick them over Denver, honestly. I think that, the schedule doesn't get much easier, and like I agree, without those turnovers, we're not going to win any games. It's like that's just not winning football because you shouldn't be you should be coaching in a way like almost like the Chargers didn't really force any turnovers. They just let it happen. Like play good enough, sound defense that like Aaron Rodgers has nothing to do but throw an interception, right? Make the offense committed instead of trying to get one. I think that there's a big difference there of like building your defense so that sure, and like again, our defense is still really good, but building your defense in a way that it's like we don't need a turnover because we're just going to make you punt, right? And our defense did that a lot, but I think the Chargers defense did that better. And then like we're not gonna, hunt for a turnover, but if the opportunity, we're gonna make it so that it's hard for the offense to not. And I think that the Steelers kind of struggle to do that. Like we just hunt for that big play. So yeah, I would love to see just finding a way to win without the big play or without the big turnover. Especially now that it's basically guaranteed now that week 17 is going to be for the division if we don't screw up any worse. Because I don't want to who cares about the one game up? It's the same, like 4-5, 5-4. Like we completely squandered a perfect division. It couldn't have been a better year. It couldn't have been a better start. And it's all gone. Like it's all gone. We're the same now. And my dad's going to the Cincinnati game, and we were on the phone talking before the Sunday night game, and he was feeling pretty good. Like he was like, "It's cool to go to the Steelers game. I love going, but I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, we'll see." And then after the Sunday night game, it's like, I don't know, like what do I want to go? Like, oh my goodness. And so yeah, it's every year it feels like since 2020, and we've had years like this also in the past, but every year since 2020, it's just been like man, there was some promise there. Like I can think of like a moment in a game where the announcers are talking about the record of the Steelers and talking about like, oh, the future, right? And then it's almost like a curse that right after that, bam, like it's just collapse. I can picture a moment almost every single year, including 2020, that has been like, oh, here, like we got the Steelers. Here are the Steelers, and then Mike Tomlin's like, oh, wait, I got something, and then just bam, the rug is pulled out, and we're done.
Yep. And it's so frustrating because, like you said, it could have been the Bengals this year. If Joe Burrow's healthy, we might not even be in this conversation right now because the Bengals might just be 7-2 or something like that. But we had the opportunity. Joe Burrow gets hurt. Lamar Jackson gets hurt. And now, again, the Ravens, they win this week against the Vikings, who are a little scrappy team. They're not great, but the Ravens put them away. It was close for the first little bit, and then it wasn't close. And now, again, I guarantee you that the Ravens are just going to rattle them off. I said that they'd be in contention by week 17. Well, I'm looking at my watch right now, and it's week 11, and they're only a game back. And we haven't even played them yet. So, they're ahead of schedule. The Steelers are way behind schedule. And now it's like, okay, what are you going to do? Because you have to go pound for pound with the Ravens for the rest of the year if you even want to make the playoffs. Because right now, the AFC is a logjam in the wild card spots. And there's nowhere to go in the wild card. So if you want to make the playoffs, you better win the division. And there's probably no other option for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we've said, we got to go toe to toe with the Ravens. Guess what? The Ravens' hardest part of the schedule, it's over with. Our hardest part of the schedule, it's just begun. So, oh man, I don't think we can go toe to toe with the Ravens with their schedule and our schedule. I don't think we're going to win the division. I don't know if we're going to win ten games. I think like something that was beneficial for this week is like, oh, okay, so the Bills really do look beatable. That's encouraging because we still got to play them. But then another thing is that the Lions look better than they've had all year, so that's great. It's another thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I have no hope that we'll win this division. I think that I trust John Harbaugh to yeah, I mean, yeah, just go to the heads of the teams. I trust John Harbaugh to go to win more games the rest of the season than I do Mike Tomlin. And then that's all it comes down to. And it starts with even this next game where it's like I honestly don't even I have a bit of a feeling of what to predict, but I have no clue after this Sunday night game what on earth is going to happen Sunday at 1 o'clock.
I did a little bit of research real fast. This was the worst offensive performance we've had since week 5 of 2022 when we lost 38-3 to the Buffalo Bills. That was the Kenny Pickett game, and that was terrible. I mean, that was a pretty egregious watch, and they were out of it from the very beginning. I think that was like the Gabe Davis 99-yard touchdown to start the game, and they were never in that game, which again makes it even more frustrating because this game, they were in it for 3 quarters, essentially. They were never down by more than 2 scores in the first 3 quarters, and they just never took advantage of any opportunities that came their way. So, did I predicted a win. Did I expect them to win? Not exactly. Did anybody expect them to win this game? I think some people did, but, the way that they lost is what makes this more upsetting than anything. Because if they lose close, it's like, okay, we came close with the team that's good, but they didn't come close. They got absolutely walloped. So, and on top of that, the offense looks terrible too. So, coming into this Cincinnati Bengals game, the first thing that I think of is, okay, sure, the offense was terrible. This might be their chance to get one back offensively because the Bengals have given up more than 30 points in their last 3 weeks, including one of which was to us, which was probably the last time we've looked good entirely offensively, was that last Thursday night football game. So in my mind, that's a little bit of optimism, but at the same time, the Bengals are also scoring 42 points in the last 3 weeks too.
Right. And I think that it's hard to think, I think a lot's happened from the last time that we played them, even though it's been a short amount of time. Like a lot has happened to both teams. Like I think that our defense has gotten unbelievably better, and there better be a better game plan for Jamar Chase. If we can keep Jamar Chase at around 100 yards, I think we can win the game. If we let what happened, if we let the embarrassment that happened last time with Jamar Chase happen again, yeah, I mean, kiss the game goodbye. But I am slightly optimistic for a few reasons. One, like you mentioned, the Bengals defense is horrendous. And I think even though we looked horrendous, it was against a really good defense. And I think that we can do okay against this Bengals defense just because they're so bad. Because I mean, yeah, the winless Jets scored 39 points. Anybody can score against this Bengals team. And so that encourages me to think, okay, our offense doesn't really even need to be that great. Like they can do just fine. And against this defense, it should be enough. And then looking on the offense, I think that this Joe Flacco experiment, I don't think it's really lost like any of its power because, yeah, like you said, they're scoring a lot of points. However, I think the wind in the sails are gone. I think that the wind in the sails were like full steam ahead when they played us because it's like first game with Joe Flacco, he wins. And then, these past 2 games, it's like, oh, he's going to do it again. Let's go. Joe Flacco's our hero. And then collapse. They lose. And so now it's like, okay, Joe Flacco might come out and he might play really well. But like, I don't think Bengals fans are going to expect to win, even if he plays well. And I think that that's huge. That, I mean, that new momentum they got, I feel like is completely crushed by these past 2 games.
I think that's a great point. I mean, Bengals fans are completely distraught right now. If you lose to the winless Jets, that's going to do it to you. And then the fact that they had the game won against the Bears last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago, and they completely blew that as well. I mean, the Steelers they had 0 explosive plays against the Chargers. Yeah. The Bears had probably 50 explosive plays against the Bengals just 2 weeks ago. So again, in a way, this might be the tune-up game for the Steelers offense, which could benefit them the rest of the year. Maybe this one was just a stinker against a good defense. But now you get the chance to play a really, really cruddy and historically terrible defense. And maybe that gets you tuned up. Maybe that's just, again, the shooter in basketball. You just need to see one go down, and then it just starts going downhill from there. The snowball keeps getting bigger. So maybe this is an opportunity. And the fact that it is at home, I think that helps that out as well. It's been snowing here in northwestern Pennsylvania for the last 2 days. So, I don't know. I don't know what the conditions are supposed to be like on Sunday. It's a day game. That'll probably make things a little bit warmer than, a night game anywhere else. But things could be a little bit wonky on Sunday, I feel like. And, if the Steelers lose this game, then it's over. There's nothing else that you can expect from this season. Because this is one of those games that it should be a win based on everybody else that they have to play the rest of the season. So if they lose this game, like you said, kiss it goodbye. The season's over. You're 5-4. You're still hanging on by a thread. The Ravens are breathing up your butt, but you can't lose this game. It's non-negotiable.
Right. I completely agree with you that this game is so pivotal because it's just one you need to win and you should win. And I like that it's home. And I'm gonna go with a win, even though watching this team Sunday, I was like, oh, there's no way. But just thinking about it a little bit more, it's like there's just a lot of things that are in our favor going into this game on Sunday. And sure, we're really really bad game, but we're home. It's the Bengals. It's the worst defense in the league. I think that we're gonna do enough to win. And yeah, I'm gonna predict a win. I don't even know with the score. I'll probably say the thing is yeah, it should be high scoring, but I don't even know if I could picture us scoring a lot right now. So I guess I'll go like 31-28 or something.
That's honestly more high scoring than I was going to say. I'm also going to say a win. And before I make my actual prediction, I do want to say that, I am down in the predictions right now because I did predict a win this last week. And I'll say that I was very naive because the Chargers were 2 games, or excuse me. Yeah, they're 2 games. I'm trying to figure it out. Okay, so the Broncos won on Thursday night to, really put them ahead. At that point, they're a game and a half up on the Chargers. So it's like, okay, the Chargers need to keep pace with the Broncos. The Broncos look terrible, but the Chargers still need to keep pace. I wasn't aware that they were back at where they were. So if I was aware of where the AFC West standings were, I would have said a Chargers win just because, again, the Ravens were going to win this week, the Steelers were going to lose, and the Chargers were going to keep pace with the Broncos because that seems to be the storyline that's going in the NFL this year. And then, little spoiler alert, because I've seen the script, the Chiefs are going to come up and they're going to, insert themselves into the AFC West standings here pretty soon. So don't be caught off guard by that at all. So they're not in a playoff spot, but they'll be there pretty soon. So again, keep an eye on that. Remember where you heard it because it was from me here in week 11. But anyway, I was naive to pick the Chargers last week, and that was, that's kind of the rerun of Chiefs from Christmas Day last year. So that's on me. I'm a game back, but I am going to predict a win this week against the Cincinnati Bengals for a similar reason. But now I'm going to say that this is going to be a low-scoring game because nothing that the Steelers do as far as the expectations are makes sense. We figured that, okay, the Chargers' offensive line was terrible and that the defense was going to eat. They ate a little bit. They had an appetizer, but they weren't incredible. They didn't have that big turnover. They didn't have that big forced fumble on a sack or something like that. So I'm going to say that this one's going to be super low scoring, and I'm going to say the Steelers win this one 24-21 at home to keep their season alive for now.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I like it. I think that that's a good point about the Chargers, and I totally fully believe you that the Chiefs will be back in it. And which is unfortunate. But yeah, I think that like you said, it's to save the season, it's at home. And I feel like this is a big game. We got the home crowd in a rivalry game. I think that the past few years, I feel maybe just the past 2 years, Tomlin, for the first time, it feels like has started to get a little bit of heat. I feel like if you let down this home crowd against the rival Bengals, who are horrible, after this horrible loss that you had the Chargers, I think you could see some boos coming in and a lot of negativity pouring out from a home loss like this. So I think that there's a lot riding on this game for the season and just for the players and the coaches.
I think so too. And it seems like the national media is starting to get in on this too. We thought that we thought they were getting in on this late last year and then that kind of fizzled out. But Brian Daboll got fired from the Giants this week. And wouldn't you know, Brian Dable has more playoff wins in his tenure than Mike Tomlin has had in the last 10 years. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy. Like, I saw something. It was like the last time, or sorry, yeah, since the last time the Steelers have had a playoff win, Dan Quinn has led the Falcons to the Super Bowl, got fired by the Falcons, been the Cowboys defensive coordinator, been amazing with them, was hired by the Commanders, took the Commanders to an NFC championship game, all while Mike Tomlin has not won a playoff game. So I think that just goes to show you that sometimes turnover can work, and sometimes turnover can get you wins, especially when you are where we are.
Well, take a look at the Penguins. They fired their head coach, Mike Sullivan, who had won them 2 Stanley Cups. He's the only American head coach to win back-to-back Stanley Cups in history, and they got stale. And they hired Dan Muse, and he's leading the Penguins to a very uncharacteristically good start. They're around the top of the league right now. They're competitive. They're actually a good hockey team. Was Mike Sullivan a good head coach? Absolutely. But sometimes you just need a new voice. Sometimes you need something fresh. And if the Steelers take anything from their friends across the river, maybe that's something they have to do too. And sure, if they start losing again, those conversations between the two of us will start to ramp up.
Absolutely. And I think it's like what you said. Like, you could be the greatest coach in the world. Andy Reid, right? Amazing coach. His message in Philadelphia got stale because they couldn't win. So they said goodbye, after like one losing season. And that's how it goes. And that's how it should go. And I think that Tomlin's had it really easy. And I think his message has been stale for a while. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens this Sunday. Hopefully it's a win like we predict.
Both of us predicting some wins. David a little bit more high scoring than me. I'm predicting a weird game. It's going to be low scoring and close, and it might save the Steelers' season. And heck, if they lose, then like we said, you can chalk this one up goodbye and start looking towards 2026. But as far as things go, Boardman Black and Gold is sponsored by Zecca Enterprises, crafting furniture solutions in northwestern Pennsylvania. Call 919-406-4679 to turn your furniture problems into furniture solutions. Any last thoughts, David?
No, except that, we'll go either way. We're going to find a silver lining. Either we win and we're still in it, or we lose, and hopefully the media starts, attacking our leadership.
That's what's going to happen if they lose, because there's nowhere to hide anymore. If you lose 4 out of 5, 2 of which against the same team that has a defense that is literally historically terrible, then there's nothing more that you can hide behind. And as far as things go, the rest of the season, this is one of the easier games. So if you don't take advantage of this now, then you're not going to take advantage of anything. So David and I both predicting wins, hoping for a Here We Go Steelers win this upcoming Sunday. Perhaps Father David is going to be in attendance. I'm actually thinking about going to the game as well. I don't know if that's for sure or not, but I will see. But as far as things go, on the Boardman Black and Gold podcast, Zane and David predicting a win and hoping for a Here We Go Steelers win to save our season. We need something to go our way. Please, please, please. Thanks for listening to this episode of Boardman Black and Gold. We will see you after this Bengals week.